Hello, and welcome back to this final episode on recreating Baldur's Gate 3's camera system inside Unreal Engine. In the last episode, we managed to fix up some dynamic object logic regarding a floaty sphere going in and out of room collections that are faded in and out. And I mentioned a few bugs that we needed to fix up this time around, and that's what we're going to dive into now. As I mentioned before, the bugs are room collections not fading out when they should, such as the roof here, and also being able to see through the floor that you are standing on, if it is an environment actor floor. So those are the two things we're going to fix up, and let's get stuck into it. So let us first of all fix up the room collections, because it should be an easy fix. What I'm going to do is load up the camera, and in the event tick logic for finding the room collections, where we're adding objects to the rooms in the way array, what I notice we're doing wrong here is we are checking if the index is greater than 0. And obviously with arrays start counting from 0, so what we should be checking instead if it's equal to or above 0, because then it's a valid index. So if we do greater than or equal, that should pretty much fix that up. But what I will do as well, just to flesh it out a bit more, is I will come into the room collection and let's add a new variable, float variable, and let's call this something like, what do we want to say? Maybe height proximity range, something like that. And if we compile and save this, I'm going to set this to 200 as a default value. And what we're going to use this for is in our camera blueprint, we are going to check that value here. And the reason why we're doing this is because we might not always want rooms to fade out at the same level. You know, we might want rooms to stay for a bit longer or fade out a bit faster. So we can dictate that on a per room basis by making that variable in the room collection. So if we come back to the camera here, we can drag out from cast to room collection on the event tick box trace on the first for each loop, drag out from there, and say get height proximity range. Now, every time we are hitting a room collection, we are checking the range that we want to start fading out from. So if we compile and save that now, this should be working nicely. I don't think we need to change any of the default values. So rooms fade out. We haven't broken that. Let's see what happens when we get to the top floor. Does the roof stay fade out? Does the roof stay faded out? It does. Cool. So it comes back and disappears as we want it to. So that's working nicely. Now let's fix up the floor. And actually, as well as that, let's start taking off some of this debug information that we have. So we can go into the camera and into the box trace. Let's remove that debug trace by hitting none. Compile that. And then in set camera height, we want to do the same on that line trace. As well as that, where is our sphere? There it is. Let's just make the sphere invisible. So if we search visible, untick that, compile and save. If we hit play now, it should look a lot cleaner. Yeah, there we go. So this is what you should be seeing as you're playing around with yours. Cool, so the next thing we want to do is expand our functionality in the environment mask function. And by that I mean we might want to switch on and off the different types of fading that we have on a per material basis. So for example, we might want the floor to be able to fade out but not include that circular masking that we have if the environment is in the way. And we can do that by opening up our material function environment mask once again. and add some more logic here to be able to switch on and off this logic for the masking and this logic for the dithering. And the way we're going to do that is by adding function inputs. We're going to add 2 of them, and we're going to make the first one, we're going to make both of them actually static bools, function input static bools, and we're going to call this use dithering, something like that. And we are going to copy and paste that and call this one use masking. Cool. So now that we've got those, we can switch on and off this logic by adding a switch. So if we drag out from the input, we can do switch, but it's not the math switch, it's the static switch under functions that we want. And this automatically comes into true, so let's unhook that and hook that up to value instead. And if use dithering is true, we want to plug this in here. If it's false, we want to drag that back, and actually let's hit 1 on the keyboard to get that value and add 1 in. So just 1 means don't use this at all. And we're going to do the same for down below with the use masking. We can drag out from there. Probably don't need to drag out. Let's just do switch, static switch, plug that into value. And if true, use this. And if false, hit 1 on the keyboard again and bring in a scalar value of 1. And now we can plug both of these switches into multiply. So now what we can do is in the environment material, you'll see it automatically comes up with an error when you try and compile that because we're not actually feeding in any information here. We can drag back and get a static bool parameter. And we're going to call this by the same name. So use masking and default to true. And copy and paste that. And call this one use dithering. And hook that up to use dithering. Apply, save, and now we can start controlling this if we make material instances off of the master material. So far we've been using the master material on our environment, but let's change it up by adding a material instance where we can start adjusting some of those values. Actually, inside the material as well, we've got a constant for the color, but let's change this to a parameter by right-clicking and going convert to parameter. And now we can adjust the color on the fly. Let's call this base color. Apply and save. And I'm going to hit the little find in folder icon here, so it just brings us to the material itself. If we right-click on the material now and do create material instance, let's make one for the floor. So mi for material instance underscore floor. If we load that up now, you'll see it's looking a little different. Instead of the graph, we just have a detail panel and a viewport. So we can turn on and off these values in here by clicking on the tick box beside them. And for the floor, let's change the color to like a nice blue, something like that. And for use masking, we want to turn this off. So we save that now. Come back to the world. And let's hook this up to the floor here, as well as this piece and this piece. Your house might look a little different, so just apply it to whatever floor pieces you have. Click on the static mesh. And in the materials panel, drag in floor. And do the same thing here. Click on static mesh, drag that in. Click on the static mesh and drag that in. And now what we should see is if we come up to this floor, the floor, actually I'm just noticing now we haven't actually put these in the correct room collection, but let's adjust that in a second. So all the other actors are currently using the masking, but you'll notice that we can't see the character right now because it's hidden behind the floor. So that means that the use masking is turned off, and if we come up to the floor, we can't actually see through it anymore, but we can see through everything else. So That's cool. That's awesome. Let's just add those to the room collection really quick. So let's find the room collection here. I'll just search for it. And in static objects, I'm going to add to more, go down to the bottom of that list, and pick both of these floors. So if we hit play now, they should be included. Yeah, they're fading away nicely. Cool. So with that complete, I think that is everything ticked off my list for the series. So I'm going to wrap things up here. Awesome. So that is it for Baldur's Gate 3's camera system in Unreal Engine. The tutorial series actually lasted a bit longer than I thought it would, but yeah, I'm kind of glad it did because we were able to get into so much around the engine, from material functions to parameter collections to masking and occlusion, but outside of materials we even got to do some dot products and editor events and, you know, automatically populating room collections with the call and editor functionality. So yeah, if you learned anything along the way, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It will help out a ton. And I hope to see you in future tutorials. So have a good day, everyone. I will see you later.